Hey, Dean here, back in the secret underground lair. So today we're going to be trying to mount the wheel to a hub so it can go on a shaft. And being an MDF wheel, I have a piece of oak here that I'm going to use for a shaft and of course for the hub, and of course the steel axle or shaft. I did a test fit. It's a 3/4 inch shaft. I drilled a hole with a mortising with a Fournier, a drill bit. And it fits just perfectly, a real nice tight fit. So I'm happy that I have exactly the right drill bit that I want. Now the question is, how do I get this to stick to this and the shaft in here and then clamp the whole business together so that it won't move? So here's the plan. I'm going to cut this into a square, roughly like so. There'll be 4 holes that will act as anchor points for this hub onto the wheel. Of course, there'll be a hole in the middle representing this hole over here that'll hold the shaft. That hole, of course, will go right through there. When I have this hole mounted, or this hole drilled and this hole drilled, and these 4 holes drilled, I can then center the whole business on this shaft and then use these hub holes as pilot holes to drill through the wheel itself, and then I will bolt the wheel or the hub onto the wheel. I'm going to use bolts rather than screws because this being MDF, I really don't like having screws going through MDF. Then in order to securely keep this clamped onto the hub, I'll do at least 2 things, or I'll do 1 thing, maybe 2. The first is we're going to use the bandsaw and cut a slit through here. Of course, that'll be halfway through, so right through there. Then we'll have another hole drilled through here. This will be sunk in quite a bit, countersunk. And then we can put a screw through here to clamp this back. So once this stuff is assembled, I don't really expect to be taking this shaft out. The whole shaft and wheel can slide through the bearing block assembly without being dismantled. So let me get on with that. Right, there's our rough hub. Okay, for the clamping mechanism, we're going to be using a pocket screw that'll go through. I'm going to set it over here to come down, and it'll clear that bolt hole, clear that, and not quite reach that bolt. So it'll go in there, which means I need to drill a 10mm hole about that deep to provide a shoulder for the pocket screw. For the full depth of the screw, we'll be using a 9/64 bit. That'll give us the depth we need for the screw itself. And then we'll clear up the top part with a slightly bigger screw just to go down to the cut mark so that we're not creating any tension in this area. We're in fact applying all the friction down in the bottom part to pull that up tight. Okay, drill holes are cut. Now we'll run this through the bandsaw to cut that line through there. Okay, we'll go to the table saw and just cut that off as a final cut. Okay, we got our hole cut. Screw in, just cut off. So I'll just put this screw in here and let's see if that hole clamps up a little bit. Oh yeah, you can see that going just ever so slightly. So I'm okay with that. Let me back that off. I'm going to put the shaft in and we'll tighten it up and see if that grabs onto the shaft a little bit. We'll tighten this up. Let's crank on it for good measure. That is going nowhere. If worst comes to worst, I could cut a little hole there and then we could insert a keyway. But let's just see how this works. Got the wheel mounted now and it seems to have turned out very well. It spins quite nicely, clamped in well. I'll work on the bearing block on the bearing mount on the other side to get the shaft and the axle mounted onto this as appropriate. So we'll get the other wheel set up. Just a little tip about drilling MDF. Go slow, really slow, to the point where you think this is crazy, but it just comes out so much nicer. There's no tear out on the other side, and it just like a hot knife through butter. Obviously this axle is a little long for our purpose, but this will be cut down to about 10 inches. So it'll hold the idler wheel in line perfectly. So we'll get this cut, insert it into the Worktable Sawmill, and see both wheels ready to spin. Okay, here we are in our Harbor Freight bandsaw, ready to cut this off. That saw is loud, but boy, does it make a nice quick cut. Okay, we've got the wheel now mounted on the axle on the idler side, wheel mounted on the drive side. Look at that. Look at that. We're getting so close. Next step, take the blades off. We'll attach a motor likely to this shaft so that we can then lathe the wheels, and we'll do that. We'll lathe both wheels on the drive side. So we'll do that in our next video. So thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and there's more content on the way.